Hi, Davi here, and today we have a new episode in the Art of Davi YouTube channel, and today we'll be checking out the work of um, Okinawa Nogori. Is an artist, well, he or she, they're Japanese, I think, and their work does remind me a lot of Jung Gi because a lot of it is based on contours, so essentially just line drawings, and like the style is very similar, like the way the curves are and just how the proportions are when it comes to the anatomy and stuff, the humanization of certain animals. It really does remind me of Kim Jung-gi, and I think it's also obviously the tools being used. It's so consistent, by the way. I will link this profile in the description below, but all of it is in traditional, so there's no digital element to this or to this artist's portfolio. And I like it because they're taking the photo from obviously from somewhere. No shit. I mean, they're taking it like it's under, like it's in the same table every time. It's a brown table with a basic sheet of paper. And I think this really helps, or this can really help if you're someone struggling with procrastination like myself. I think simplifying or setting rules for yourself, I think, is a great way to help you decide or move things forward. In this case, like you're not even deciding what kind of like software to use because it's all traditional. It's all black and white for the most part. And if you look at this guy's work, there's hardly any color, and even if there is color, it's still done in the line work kind of approach, where it's all, there's no like shading involved. It's all just a bunch of line weights and maybe a bit of shadow here and there. And obviously, I think this can really help, keep things going instead of having to try different things or different types of like techniques every time. I think you can set these sorts of rules, and it kind of helps solidify or set a theme for your brand, for your work. And at this point, I don't think there's any other artists like Okinawa Gori. Okinawa Nogori. I mean, yeah, there's Kim Jung-gi, but with this level of work, I mean, this guy does post stuff daily and sometimes multiple times a day. And I do think each of his, like, each drawing or each sheet of paper is treated more like a snapshot of a current thing he's working on. For example, sometimes for some days it will just be like a sheet of studies of, say, like hand positions, and sometimes it's a full-on like illustration. This one's not as complete, but sometimes he'll go, or she'll go, or this artist will, for example, this thing. I mean, yeah, it's still technically a sketch, I think, but it feels more complete. And there's no like underlying drawings. The approach is very similar to, again, Kim Jung-gi, where it's just direct and contour drawings. But sometimes it's like one character with like lots of details. Sometimes it's like a character sheet where one character is being like studied in different angles, different positions. Sometimes it's more of an anatomical study sheet like this one. And I have noticed that if it's not like this type of pen, like a non-weighted pen, it's basically like there's no line weight involved. It's just basic ballpoint pen. There's no shading. It's just all contour. If it's not this type of style or approach, the drawings are done with a brush pen, kind of like this one, whether colored or black. I've noticed that it's sort of it's the second tool that's often used, but also pencil, like a basic pencil. But again, it's not even shaded in. In this case, maybe the shadows, the hair, obviously, but the way it's drawn, it's very contour-esque, like focusing more on, the anatomy, the curves, and everything. And I do like the way this is the simplification is like example for like the hand, like it's almost always like one shape, muddled up into, well, I guess one shape. Like there's no, it doesn't feel as complex. Obviously, if you do it on your own, it's probably going to be hard, but well, shit, this one's a bit detailed. But yeah, it does remind me of Kim Jung Gi, attaching like animal heads to humanoid bodies, emphasizing like the anatomy, human anatomy especially, and even the way this rendering is done. Let me try using this app here, but maybe it's not working. Like the way it's the shading is done here. Like you're not shading it with a like a in this way. You're sort of suggesting like the form, but you're not doing the whole thing. Let's say this is the arm, right? Maybe this is the hand. Thumb here. Instead of like doing this, let me just hit control. You're sort of suggesting the form and the edges. The minimal, it's almost like a dotted line. A very short stroke line. And I think it helps because you're not like filling up the page with so much line work. It's very minimal, but it's enough to suggest like, the form of the thing you're trying to illustrate. So yeah, let me just go back. So yeah, it's not a basic kind of line, like a solid non-weighted line. It's a brush pen, and if it's not a brush pen, it's a basic pencil. And there's so much consistency. I do recommend you just kind of go through the media tab on Twitter or on X, and you just scroll down. And maybe this is why this guy is also kind of creative, because if everything else has been like defined, like using traditional only, basic white sheet of paper, contour drawings mainly, kind of like this. Eventually you're going to be forced to not just focus on, say, or really focus on the subject you're trying to study. Let's say, the fatty folds here when it comes to squishing your arms. But when you're trying to create like a new concept, a new design, like I think if everything else is simplified, like the complex creative stuff happens on its own, because there's like no distractions. Like you're not thinking of which brush to use, which kind of canvas to use. It's all been like I think being locked into a certain position, being cornered, being limited. Nice toes. I think that's where you can really be way more like it doesn't it encourages you, I guess, to be more creative naturally without really having to force yourself. I do like the feet stuff too. Like you'll notice a lot of hands and feet, like the way the folds are done, or the contouring. Let me try this again with a smaller brush size. Shit. How do you do it? I remember seeing this in a anatomy book where you have to make sure that this thing where two lines intersect, like if you get this right, you're going to get the whole foreshortening of like anatomical parts. You're going to get it right for the most part. So if you know which line comes first, that can be a good way to master your anatomy. Well, maybe not master, but excuse me, at least make it look nice and real. Fuck, it's so ugly. I definitely need to study, but yeah, it's just so nice. Let me find a better photo or a better like drawing with more like white space. I mean, look at this. Now, this one is done with a brush pen. And eventually, if you keep drawing like the same thing, obviously it's all character design. Let me just delete this. Fuck. It's all usually female. So basically a lot of human anatomy stuff plus some animal heads, and that's basically it. And if you keep focusing on that subject, eventually you will naturally get more creative with that subject matter. So you can play more with the proportions when it comes to the anatomy of the human figure, and also you'll be able to play around with the proportions of the animal heads and stuff. And even the poses are very dynamic. Like they're not boring, single shot types of things. It's very sort of pulled, exaggerated, like comic book types of scenes or shots. I mean, look at this. Look at how minimal it is, but it still works. Like the way the hands are done. This feels right. Let's try practicing a bit. We're studying the hands. Like, fuck me. It's so thick. How do you do the thumb? The thumb is sort of like this, and it feels gestural, I think. Right? So there's a fold here. It does that. I'm focusing on this thing. And then there's like a squishing thing with the finger fat, and then it does this one more time. Right? And then boom. Right? Shit, that's one fugly looking. But you get the point. Now let's try this hand. So knuckles, right? Suggestion of the fingernail. See, there's one line here, and it kind of breaks away here. And then one more time with this. Right? Kind of like that. Yeah, not bad. So if you can master like the hierarchy of the lines, like which line comes first, which line overlaps the other, that's pretty much the majority of your line work. Obviously, it may get a bit more complicated when you're painting, but when it comes to line work, you can suggest form this way by overlapping lines, right? See that? Minimal dotted short stroke lines to suggest like, the form and stuff. And maybe the bracelet here. I mean, you get it, right? But yeah, that's a lot of like cool stuff. And again, the limitation here is just what? One sheet of paper. So if it's a full-on character, if it's like a character sheet, if it's anatomical studies, some head studies. And I like how it's not even always complete, kind of like this one. But the consistency, my brethren and sisters as well, it's just too good. And if you're trying to get like motivated or inspired, I do recommend, because it's not just the actual results that you see, but the consistency of this artist is just enviable. And it's just nice going through and seeing like the improvements this artist makes along the way. It's nice to see. And if you're into feet, whether it's hands or feet, I mean, look at the way it's done, the contouring. Like there's no pencil sketch underneath. So even if you get it wrong the first time or the second time, eventually if you keep focusing on your contour drawings, you will eventually know how far the finger goes, which fold comes first, because you're not really trying you're not drawing claws or different animal stuff. It's basically just the main thing here is the human anatomy, and then the occasional animal head. And then, yeah, that's the bulk of this guy's or this chick's portfolio. And with that amount of focus, with that amount of limitation, I think that's what's going to get you to this level of expertise. So check out the work of Okinawa Gora. Okinawa Nogori. Okinawa Nogori. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.